Game one, Pacers, Knicks. You know what that means. We're going to do on this channel. We're going to strap in and get ready for the DraftKings Showdown and the prop betting markets today and prepare like we always do here. We're going to look at my projections and compare them to some of the industry leaders out there, in particular, our friends at Stochastic. We're also going to hop over to Unabated, see what the best market-based bets are as of right now. We'll hop back to Stochastic, run a DFS sim, see what the top lineups are for tonight's Showdown slate on DraftKings. It's 100K up top. And by the end of this video, you know all the industry must-plays along with my splash plays for today's slate. So let's get into it. Early start today, so if you're not watching live, no worries about it. I just got to get this out of the way so I can do an afternoon meeting. And I'm sitting around. I'm ready to go, so let's talk about the stuff. And let's start it off with Jalen Brunson, your top salaried guy on the slate, top projected guy on the slate as well. 47.2 is the projection for me today at an 11K salary. Brunson to me looks like a very strong play here. 47.9% ownership expected today by Stochastic in the sim. I'm getting him a similar amount here, 43%. A little bit of a fade, but not too big of one. For Brunson as well, got him 11% at captain. 18% is where the exposure is at right now, expected by Stochastic. For Brunson, I think he's a strong play again. It's the same thing we've talked about every series. I've been a Towns boy because basically he was so good in the regular season. I can't undo that in my data. I can't overwrite that with how the rates have gone so far in the playoffs. But Brunson's got more usage than anybody else on the team. He's been your lead scorer by a pretty wide margin with 32.6% usage, 34% assist rate. You're talking about those two things combined. He's got the ball in his hands almost 70% of the time that he's out there. Shot well enough. For comparison, Towns' usage has been down. Assist rate's been down to basically nothing at 5%. Brunson averaging 1.2 fantasy points a minute as opposed to Towns at 1.08. So really, Brunson has really been the better play than Towns so far in the playoffs. My hope would be in this series, we could see things flip around a little bit with how good Towns has been the entire season. But at this point for Jalen Brunson, he's your top projected player. Feel like he's kind of an SGA-ish player yesterday. We didn't end up getting 100% of SGA when I ran my final lineups. I don't think it's going to be the case today for me with Brunson, but I think he is a strong play still no matter what. Definitely going to be your most obvious play as well. People know the usage. People know the flopping and all of that and how that'll lend himself to get a few more points through foul trouble and whatever issues he gets guys into, much like SGA did yesterday. But to me, I would say for Brunson, very obvious play here. Play him, don't play him, whatever. He's going to be owned a lot by the field. Towns, to me, though, is the big stand here. Of course, he's on the thumbnail yet again. I didn't realize I put him on for Game 6 of the Pacers series as well, or the last series, the Celtics closeout game. But Towns on the thumbnail again. You guys know the deal if you've watched this show all year long. He's been regularly one of my top projected players. As we talked about, he's not the same player so far in the playoffs. Definitely usage has been down. Overall, the scoring has been down. The fantasy points in particular at 1.1, a pretty big jump from where he was at a 1.35 fantasy point per minute range during the regular season. So Towns, to me, I think is definitely a player where I feel a little bit on an island here, and I don't want to change things from how I do things because I like how things are running. Had a really good finishes yesterday as well. Was on top for most of last night, but ended up finishing, I think, just outside the top 50 yesterday in a 14-man tie because I did not have, fortunately, Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels couldn't outscore Holmgren and Randall. I think was the 2v2 that I lost out on there. But I actually had an Isaiah Joe lineup, had a lineup of Kason Wallace in it as well that was doing pretty well. So that point being, I feel good about my data. So like for me, I'm not changing things with Towns. For you guys out there, you don't have to be as exposed to Towns as I am. But again, I'm getting 59% of my top 150 lineups for the sim I ran before the show. Also got him for 23% in captain exposure compared to the field's 22%. So a little bit above the field there. He is actually going to be your chalk captain today, according to Stochastic data, is Karl Anthony Towns. So I'm not alone on an island in terms of viewing him as one of the best plays overall. But it does feel like for me, I'll be even above that. He's a chalky play. I'm going to make it even chalkier for myself. But Towns, if you feel like the playoff run he's had so far, if you feel like the performance is due to come back down because these series perhaps have been a reflection of what he actually is as a player, then fading Towns, I think, is a pretty obvious way to get away from the field. But to me, at 9,800, just too cheap. Very similar projection to Brunson. I'll be on Towns a lot today at captain and the flex. Haliburton, a player who has also played well in the playoffs so far, though not big enough rate jumps to really change his projection for me. But 21% usage, 37% assist rate in the playoffs so far, along with a very solid 1.2 fantasy point per minute. Technically, he's the best fantasy point per minute scorer in the playoffs so far out of everybody in this game. Number 2 would be Brunson at 1.19. So for Haliburton, he's been good. Being with the field here, 38% ownership for Stochastic's expected numbers here. I'm getting him 39% of my top 150. That feels fine. For captain, I'm actually getting Haliburton at 15%, field at 8%. So a pretty decent stand there. I think to me, Haliburton, a very obvious play to go to if you're not playing Brunson. If you play Towns and Haliburton together, would say that those lineups would sort of cover both bases, where if Towns has an outlier day, Brunson could fail. Like that's kind of thing could work. And you're also paying up for the other guy and paying up for Haliburton as opposed to paying up for Brunson. So I would say for these top 3 guys here, they're going to come in a lot of lineups. Towns and Haliburton, more preferred plays to me than Brunson. But both are all 3 rather going to be very much in every lineup or a large portion of lineups are going to be making today. Josh Hart, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, bit of the second tier here. All these guys projected for about 30 to 40% ownership, so a good amount for them in the flex. In terms of how these guys look, Hart has been my preferred secondary Knicks piece for basically the entire series. In this situation for Hart, I think really you get a shot at him having that rebounding upside, having the assist upside a little bit more in games where Towns don't succeed, in games where Brunson doesn't succeed. That's always been the case throughout the regular season. We haven't seen it happen quite as much in the playoffs because really Brunson's been, I would say, good pretty much every game. Towns has been in the mix for the most part every game, but not really had the floor games that are so egregious that it opens up a massive ceiling for Hart. But really, to me, in terms of playing him, Anunoby or Bridges, I always prefer Hart. And that's the case again here, getting him with the field at 37%. And Hart as well, a little bit lower than the field on captain, but 10% expected ownership for Hart at captain. I got 9. So Hart, again, key play here today, as he has been for a while. Pascal Siakam, most likely beneficiary if Haliburton were to not succeed in the showdown lineup. If he were to not make a lineup, it probably means Siakam played a little bit better. Maybe McConnell got there in the second group, Mathurin, like anybody who gets usage on a second tier kind of level would probably succeed more if Haliburton were to fail. But Siakam at 8,600, nice price tag for him. Not quite as good of a value as the guys around him. I have Hart as a better value. Anunoby is a better value. Haliburton is a better value despite the pay-up option there. So Siakam, to me, I think not quite as strong of a play in terms of the core numbers, but 8,600, he'll fit in lineups well enough that I am getting him above the field. 37.3% for me right now in my top 150, fields at 35.8. For Siakam, in terms of captain ownership, I got basically none. Only 2% of my top 150 have him. It's a 7% for the field. But I do think for Siakam here, he is a solid play. I feel like in some respects, the ceiling is probably substantially higher than Josh Hart. But really, Siakam and Hart, I think, both serve the same function where if you're not playing your pay-up options for their teams, they look a little bit more appealing. If you are playing the pay-up options for the teams, you're probably not going to get there quite as much. Anunoby. So Anunoby last game out for the Knicks in that closeout game versus Boston. Lost some minutes to Miles McBride. So did Mikal Bridges at one point as well. The Bridges was in foul trouble. Anunoby, I believe, just lost minutes naturally. Let me actually confirm that here on Popcorn Machine. Anunoby, one foul. Yeah, one foul in these stints. Didn't have 2 at halftime. No foul here. No foul here. Anunoby didn't play not because of foul trouble. He just didn't play because they wanted to play Bridges and McBride together. So the McBride thing was weird last game. Of course, he also has won a showdown as a captain, as our guy Nolan reminded me yesterday on stream. Would say that for Anunoby and Bridges, a little bit of a risk that they like McBride enough and want to go small and can do that. It was odd to see McBride get 31 minutes at a closeout game last time out. So to me, with how the situation works for the Knicks, would still think Anunoby and Bridges are the same play, but I've not been huge on these guys throughout the entire playoffs. So for me, I don't think it would affect me quite as much if McBride went nuts, in particular if he takes minutes away from Bridges again. But Bridges having foul trouble, would expect that to level out a little bit more this game. Think Anunoby and Bridges, though, I'm surprised I'm getting 41% Anunoby at 7,600, but he's cheap, so I guess that's a logic for it. To me, Hart, Anunoby, Bridges, all functionally the same player despite different price tags. They all have similar chances of being good. I really, to be totally candid, don't get Bridges right very often because he was so bad in the regular season. He's not a player I'm going to go out of my way to get in the playoffs right now. But he has played a little bit better in the playoffs, has gotten some more usage, is averaging 0.8 fantasy points a minute, which is up from like the 0.7 and change he had in the regular season. Would say that for Bridges, I'm really anti him, only 13% of my top 150, up on Anunoby. I feel like flattening these guys out here, getting both around 30% would probably be a more logical thing to do. Guess maybe more like 26% based on my ownership. But Anunoby and Bridges, neither's a special player, I think, relative to the other. So playing those guys in equal amounts would be the main thing I would try to do. And I think, again, I would have them as a tier break behind Hart and Siakam. I think Anunoby and Bridges, to me, are just not players that I trust very much. Myles Turner here, 21% ownership for me, fields at 35. A little bit of a fade there. For Turner, I'm also low on him at captain, 8% for the field, 3% at captain. And obviously that would be the same thing for the other guys we talked about with Bridges. Bridges only got 1% of him at captain. Anunoby actually got 12% at captain. So my projections really like Anunoby today more than I would have thought. But Anunoby, the price tag being cheaper, I think is the main thing, because if these guys are all functionally very similar players, the projections are all really close here for this tier of guys. I get why I get Anunoby the most, but like, he's really not a better play besides being cheaper. So that's sort of the issue with Anunoby that I'm seeing so far looking through this data. But Turner, to me, I think a solid play. Obviously had some good games last time out in the last series, including some outlier scoring efforts. Not sure I expect that to be the case very often, but he's live to do it. If Haliburton's getting his assist game going well, if Turner can knock down some threes, makes it easier to hit that ceiling. And I think he's probably not an awful captain play either, even though I'm only getting that 3% in the fields at 8. So Turner, I don't mind. I think he's got more upside than, in my mind, he's got more upside than Anunoby and Bridges, but because he's not competing for a role as opposed to Anunoby and Bridges and Hart, where they're all competing for the same scraps. Turner at least has like something that's carved out for him that can be there. So I can live with Turner, but I am low on him based on the projection and what the sim gave me before the show. Andrew Nembhard, very much involved in the Indiana rotation in their closeout game, which was a while ago now. But let's go over here to the popcorn machine. Closeout game, Nembhard played 37 minutes here, so very much involved. Barely left the court in the second half in particular. Does lose some minutes, it looks like, to Obi Toppin? No, Toppin came in for Siakam. Ben Shepherd came in here for Nembhard. So Shepherd was basically your direct backup for Nembhard in the second half. You can see all the minutes here that Nembhard didn't play. You have Shepherd coming in. Shepherd also played with Nembhard in the first half, so it's a little bit of a change. It would be good news for Nembhard if he's just playing directly ahead of Shepherd, and that's the only guy taking minutes away from him. But this first half tells a different story, which basically, though, the main thing for Nembhard is, to me, and it's been the case the entire playoffs as well, he plays a lot of minutes. He's not particularly great. He and Nesmith, I think, very similar players as well, much like the Anunoby, Hart, Bridges threesome on the Knicks side. For Nembhard and Nesmith, I think these guys are all playing fairly well in the playoffs so far. Nembhard, I think the fantasy point per average, point per minute average is not going to be great, but Nembhard averaging, actually, no, shit. He's averaging 0.97 fantasy points a minute in the playoffs. That's crazy. 63% true shooting is maybe hard to keep up. But Nembhard's playing out of his mind. I didn't realize that. I've played him on every slate and like never been disappointed with him. Didn't realize he was playing that well. Nesmith has also been at 0.98. Really feels like they're playing above their head in the playoffs in a way that would surprise me. And maybe that goes hand in hand with Haliburton being such an outlier for assists overall. Nembhard and Nesmith coming up a lot for me here. 43% for Nembhard in the flex, 35% for Nesmith. In terms of captain ownership, I got Nembhard at 5%, which is technically above the field, 3.5. Nesmith, I got at 9% in captain. So I'm going to be dying on the hill of these fuckers more than I would have thought off the top of my head. But I get why. If they played this well in the playoffs, I do take the playoff rates for my data to try to reflect some amount of like what's gone on so far in the games we've seen. So Nembhard and Nesmith, I guess, priority plays for me in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting doing my little prep work before the show. Mitchell Robinson here, technically a top projected guy here. It's a showdown slate, but he is the last one here, and he's certainly your direct pivot. If Towns gets in foul trouble, Robinson will play more minutes. If Robinson hits some foul or hit some free throws, and Towns in foul trouble, then you're probably seeing your ceiling game for Mitchell Robinson. Not a captain play, no matter what, I don't think, but he's definitely in the mix. 25% ownership for me in the flex. It's a lot. All right, your best value, guys. Towns for me is number one. Not a surprise there, given what we talked about earlier. Toppin's at number two. Toppin playing the minutes that Siakam doesn't play, as was the case all regular season. For Toppin at 3,600, he's one of those guys here, kind of like your Isaiah Joe, Kason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins guys, just at a price tag where there aren't a ton of guys here. But certainly you can pay up to get to Benedict Mathurin, get some more secure production. You go down to Miles McBride, hope he somehow gets 30 minutes again somehow, even though he was benefited by that Bridges foul trouble last game. That's what you have for Toppin. He's a value play that looks pretty good. I get why he's coming into lineups, even though he's not the most exciting play. I would certainly try to not play him with Siakam if possible, especially Siakam at captain. But I think Toppin here, 31% in the flex, 26% for me. I think that feels like an okay number. Yeah, pretty flat exposures. That's true. I mean, even Towns, who's going to be my big stand here, is also going to be, I'm just going to be above the field on him. So really not big stands so far for me. Besides, I think the Nembhard and Nesmith stand is pretty noteworthy to me. Anunoby as a stand feels noteworthy, but the splash plays will not be quite as splashy as they usually are, I guess. So McBride here, Nesmith we talked enough about. McBride, again, I just don't expect the minutes to be there, but he's 3,200 and got real rotational minutes last game. Certainly for Indiana, you have small enough guys here that you can go McBride at the two and not feel bad about it. Like with Nembhard and Haliburton playing together, really no reason to not just put McBride on Haliburton and hope that Brunson can survive on defense. So McBride getting minutes here, I don't think would be crazy, especially if Anunoby, Bridges, one of them either gets into foul trouble or just isn't defending as well as they can against smaller guards. But you could also certainly put Anunoby or Bridges on Brunson and then, hide Brunson on Nesmith or, Nesmith more likely on Nembhard. So I think McBride has a shot to play more minutes. No guarantee he does. I think he's still perfectly owned at 14%. Getting 2x of field on and getting to 28 feels fine. I normally in showdowns won't play bench guys more than 33, even if they look like a good play. Yesterday, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I had capped. There's somebody else I capped who was coming up. Oh, Kason Wallace I capped. Actually think I could cap Kason at 50%. The point being, I won't let guys get too crazy if they're off the bench. So I would watch your McBride ownership no matter what. But think he can earn more minutes, but he's equally at risk to not earn minutes is sort of the issue there. Not a brave take. We talked enough about Brunson, Anunoby, Josh Hart, Nembhard. These guys technically top values. Mathurin's the one that's kind of interesting here. He's really been not great factor in the playoffs so far. 0.93 fan scores per minute is not bad. 24% usage is okay. He's only played 154 minutes, 330 possessions though, so pretty decent amount of possessions. 550 is the mark we're trying to hit for things to feel stable, and that's what we've hit for a lot of our star players so far in the playoffs. For Mathurin, I think the big thing for him, kind of like an Aaron Wiggins, if he gets the shots, if they go in, he's going to have that outlier effort. If he doesn't hit the shots, they don't go in, you could see somebody else off the bench succeed. Thinking through Indiana's rotation a little bit, I don't even know who'd be a Mathurin pivot. I guess McConnell, Toppin, maybe. You play one of those guys instead of Mathurin. And if they have outlier production, that's one way to get away from him a little bit. He's going to be decently owned at 27% in the flex. So I think Mathurin, again, very much to me like Aaron Wiggins yesterday. I made sure to get some different lineups without Aaron Wiggins because he was initially coming up in every lineup I was getting after I did the show yesterday. And I wanted to make sure I didn't have a ton of Wiggins because I felt like him having the outlier game in Game 7 versus Denver was like, all right, he scored a lot there in a very short amount of time. If he doesn't do that today, he's maybe not going to be as great of a play. Isaiah Joe beats him out. Kason Wallace beats him out. I think it's the same case for Mathurin here, where you get him a good amount, but take some Toppin, take some, again, if you can get to McConnell, though he doesn't really project that well as a value. We'll look at McConnell in a second. The point being, like, you get some him, maybe that's the way to do it. But I think Mathurin is, again, a very close proximity to Aaron Wiggins as a play yesterday. Haliburton still a top value here. Mitchell Robinson a top value. So really, Mitchell Robinson at the bottom of the projection screen, bottom of the value screen. Not a great play, but certainly in play. In particular, lines without Towns, and especially Towns at captain. All right, let's look at the game-by-game view. And guys, if you get value in this video, no matter what time of day I'm posting it, please just show some love, subscribe down below, hit the like button, leave a comment. All goes a long way for me here. I really do appreciate the feedback you guys gave yesterday. The video picked up a few more views, trying some different SEO stuff. And of course, I'm only doing the showdown content now at this point for NBA, but I did make my promise here at the start of NBA season I would see it through. So there's less views around for the showdown kind of single game playoff stuff, really playoff NBA in general. So your guys' support goes a long way for me here as I fulfill my end of the promise, showing up every day here and giving you guys my data. If you can fulfill your end of the promise you didn't make, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment after the fact, and shout out to all the guys who did do that yesterday. Indiana, 109.5 implied points on their side. New York, 114. We've pretty much talked about everybody here. Ben Shepherd, I don't think really in play. Ray J. Dennis, these guys, bottom of the rotation, not really in play. McConnell at 4,400, still an okay value. Got him 18% overall. Fields at a slightly lower version of 18%. I think that getting McConnell, Mathurin, Toppin similar amounts feels like a good move. The Toppin popped up the most here, rather, as a cheap play at 3,600. Slightly cheaper than Mathurin. Definitely appreciably cheaper than McConnell. But really, to me, Indiana, I think we've talked about more thoroughly than we need to. My favorite captain play would be pretty obvious. It'd be Haliburton out of the group. But in terms of ownership, got a lot more Nesmith than I would have thought, especially at captain. Got more Nembhard than I would have thought. I mean, Haliburton, though, is my biggest fan of captain, getting 15%. So I do like Haliburton the most. New York here. New York on their side, obviously, will be worshiping at the altar of Karl Anthony Towns one more time here. Nice total for New York as well with the 114 implied points, I feel like. So Towns, priority play here. Captain or the flex will get both. Brunson, certainly in play for sure. Do have less ownership for him at captain than Towns by about half, 11% ownership at captain for Brunson for me so far. 23% for Towns at captain. So I'm going Towns' way, but the field's also going Towns' way. So you can keep that in mind here. If you want to get different, playing Brunson at captain might actually be the way to do that. Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, same Bermuda Triangle of mediocrity. They've been all playoffs long. 2 out of 3 can hit. Usually not 3 out of 3 will hit unless Brunson and Towns both don't succeed. Mitchell Robinson, if Towns gets in foul trouble, Robinson getting more minutes is certainly in play. Don't think it's a captain play no matter what, unless something really weird happens in the series. And I really don't think cheap captains are not usually the move for me. Same situation we saw yesterday where you have Jalen Williams being out SGA in your top lineups. Like SGA scored like crazy, but Jalen Williams scored like crazy too, and that was good enough relative value to make it work. You just don't often see it be a case unless everybody scores terribly that you have McBride be a captain. and it's kind of flat too. So terrible and flat scoring amongst the top scorers would be the way that like a McBride, Mitchell Robinson can hit as captain, but I just don't like playing that way. But Robinson, McBride coming up a good amount for me as values. I'm above the field on both. Let's go to unabated next, guys. See what we have in the prop betting markets. Looks like I'm still logged in for now. Hopefully they won't log me out the moment I switch over to the tab. But unabated here, we're using market-based data because they don't have their proprietary projections. They come out a little bit later. So you can check that out for yourself at unabated. And they were a great partner throughout the regular season. Now we're just doing an affiliate deal, but check them out. 20% off, link down below. In particular for WNBA, I think you'll make your money off of that. For NBA playoffs, they've won people about $170,000, including the projections release. If you placed every bet then, and if you placed every bet 30 minutes before tip-off, 2 separate blocks there. They made people a lot of money ROI-wise throughout the season. That's what you get with Unabated. It's professional betting caliber data that real top-level bettors use. People spending a lot more money on betting than you or I do on a DFS slate or a betting slate. So keep that in mind with Unabated. Check it out. It's a great product, whether you're using the market-based stuff or their conditional projections or proprietary stuff they make. All right, best bets right now. Nothing for today's game, but DiVincenzo under 10.5 points for tomorrow. Looking greatly mispriced at Underdog. They have under 10.5. Everywhere else is under 9.5. So you have 6.1% EV for Dante DiVincenzo in tomorrow's rematch versus Minnesota OKC rather. For DiVincenzo, pretty big EV for that one. Rebounds. We're going to do points, rebounds, assists, and PRAs here, trying to find the best in efficiencies and pricing right now. And it won't be surprising if we don't find a lot for Knicks Pacers because of the fact that when you have a game that's sitting kind of stale, the markets can catch up and make their lines more efficient over the course of a few days of knowing the game's coming up. So really getting a lot more OKC Minnesota right now with these lines being more fresh. But Holmgren, over 8.5 rebounds, played a lot of minutes yesterday, played over Hartenstein a lot as well. Minnesota went small was their approach, so that opened up Holmgren a lot more. 2.9% EV for over 8.5 rebounds on Holmgren and minus 112 odds on FanDuel. That's probably the only bet you want to take. Slightly plus EV on your pick'em sites, but not in that range. Over 2% we're looking for market-based data. Jalen Williams over 5.5 rebounds. If you're desperate for something, you can play that at plus money on DraftKings for tomorrow as well. 1.4 rather EV on that one, but really not great numbers. Holmgren really would be the bet to take. And assists coming up next here. Yeah, there's nothing for Knicks Pacers at all. Here we go. All right. Oh, no. Under on Cat. All right. Well, under 1.5 assists for Cat. He's not been assisting very well. As I mentioned earlier, only a 5% assist rate so far in the playoffs. 3.4% EV for Cat under 1.5 assists at plus 100 odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. And that's a really solid bet. 3.4% EV with market-based data. You take that every time. So Karl-Anthony Towns under 1.5 assists looking good. Anunoby under 1.5 assists, not quite as good, but pretty big plus money there at plus 145. Wouldn't hate taking that one. It's plus money enough. You can take the shot. But the EV is certainly not there. And last step here, PRAs. Underdog moving lines as we speak. They do love to do that. All right, Mike Conley under 13.5 PRAs for tomorrow's game. A 6.1% EV on Underdog, not on Prize Picks. Mispriced on Underdog with 13.5 being the line. You can see the line for Conley on DraftKings and FanDuel's 12.5. So really nice EV for that Underdog line here under 13.5 PRAs for Mike Conley. Pascal Siakam under 29.5 PRAs, 4.1% EV on both pick'em sites. Prize Picks and Underdog. You see, again, priced differently on your regular sportsbooks, DraftKings and FanDuel. They have it under 28.5. So Siakam under 29.5. Makes sense here. Good EV on it at 4.1% EV for Siakam under 29.5 PRAs. And this one with McDaniels, you probably don't want to take. So that's that. Those are your bets. Again, not the biggest cards here compared to the NBA regular season and with using market-based data, but the conditional projections will have more for you and Unabated. Do check it out down below. Great product, and it is linked in the description. Or use the promo code SPLASH on Unabated to get yourself 20% off monthly packages and more. All right, sim part coming up here, and you saw what my data impacting a sim will do. Now we'll see what just the stochastic data has for us here. That'll be the last stop on our journey. But you guys know the deal again for Stochastic, 15% off. Link down below in the description. Check it out. And well, I'll save the subscribe pandering it for a moment here. But check out Stochastic though. Really great products on there as well. Lots of people finishing up top there in general in every tournament across MLB. Really whatever tournament I'm in. I've seen Stochastic avatars up top more than ever, and that could be just their marketing for people taking the discount more. But they've been crushing all year, so really do recommend Stochastic data. I also use my own data for NBA because I know what I'm putting into it, and I love having something that's just mine out there, along with the few of you guys that do subscribe here and get the data from me for my projections. For Stochastic, though, like obviously they're an industry standard for a reason. When you are using Stochastic data, keep in mind that you are playing the exact same way as a large portion of the field. So Just be mindful of that. That like doesn't mean they're bad plays, but it does mean that they're probably overowned because of how ubiquitous stochastics products are rather. But that's why we do this process here. It's to see what the field's going to do. But hit that like button, subscribe, guys. Again, goes a long way for me here, whether you're just watching later or live. Do appreciate your support a bunch here as I try to build up this channel as best I can. And look, I show up and do the work as much as I possibly can. I'm not so great at promoting. I don't go on Twitter. I just kind of show up and do this work here on YouTube because that's what I enjoy. So show some love, hit that like button, subscribe. Goes a long way from here. And leave a comment if you're watching after the fact as well. I always reply. If you guys have left a comment, hopefully you've seen that in practice. Let's see what we have with the stochastic sim where we had 5,000 lineups built and they compete against each other 10,000 times. So we'll find the highest ROI lineups, highest ROI players, highest exposed players, and I'll give my deductions from there as best I can. Number one lineup, Cat at captain. Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson. So Cat at captain and Mitchell Robinson, I don't think that plays perfectly together. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. So a 5-1 Knicks build here. Total definitely does support the Knicks with them having a pretty generous 114 change implied points, 4.5 point favorites at home as well. It's going to be crazy if the Knicks make the finals. I think they're going to get their ass kicked by OKC, but nice vibes for New York potentially if they could keep this up. Josh, also if the markets aren't wrong. Josh Hart, number 2. So Josh Hart, captain at number 2. Andrew Nembhard in this lineup. Jalen Brunson, Miles McBride again, Myles Turner, double Miles. OG Anunoby. It's like we've got Tails from Sonic the Hedgehog. We've got Miles X2. I don't know if that reference worked, but it worked in my brain. Anunoby here rounds out this lineup. So Hart at captain, Nembhard, Brunson, Tails, Miles McBride, and Myles Turner, and OG Anunoby. Number 3, we have Jalen Brunson, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby. So a Brunson captain here, pretty decent balanced captain ownership so far, though not a lot of Pacers. At number 4, Jalen Brunson, Andrew Nembhard, Cat makes this lineup, Miles McBride again, Mitchell Robinson, Pascal Siakam makes it. So a 4-2 build, all fairly Knicks dominant build, or at the very least not Pacers dominant from what we're seeing so far. And at number 5, OG Anunoby, Aaron Nesmith, Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Miles McBride, Pascal Siakam. Yeah, McBride is everywhere for such a low exposure number earlier. I agree. I mean, he's in the top lineups. I think it might come closer when we see the actual exposure because he probably disappears a little bit more. But I think they're encouraging you to take the variance on McBride to some amount. Okay, this is crazy. I did not expect Thomas Bryant to come in here as Stochastic's highest ROI player. So across the 150 set here, Thomas Bryant, negative ROI doesn't matter here. He's your number one guy. Negative 2.6% ROI in the flex for Thomas Bryant makes him the highest ROI player. How much was he in the rotation last series? He played 11 minutes last game. Turner wasn't in foul trouble. He did just come in and play 11 minutes. There was no reason for him to do it. He had a little bit of foul trouble in the first half. But you're talking about a guy playing 10 minutes being your highest ROI guy. That's a little bit spooky. Okay, that said, Thomas Bryant, number 1 for Stochastic. Definitely not somebody popped up a lot in my radar, but man, that's crazy. Number 2, Karl-Anthony Towns at captain, your second highest ROI guy. So yeah, Towns at captain seems like I am not alone in my expressive face of joy towards Karl-Anthony Towns. Miles McBride in the flex at number 3 is a negative 7% ROI. OG Anunoby at captain at number 4. Thomas Bryant at captain at number 5. That I don't think has any shot at hitting. That surprises me a lot. Jalen, I guess that would be, again, a balanced build. You need like foul trouble for Turner, I think, to have even a faint shot at Bryant working at captain. Brunson at captain, number 6 here, and then Brunson in the flex, number 7. So in order here, your top ROI players according to Stochastic. Bryant in the flex, Towns at captain, McBride in the flex, Anunoby at captain, Bryant at captain, Brunson at captain, Brunson in the flex. That threw me for a loop. That's a real surprise to me. Kind of funny, OKC had a solid Harden, Durant, Westbrook squad, but the super deep 2025 team might be the one that wins the ship. I mean, that's really the way you're supposed to build. Like if you're going to use the best practices of like, NBA draft capital and all that. So I'm not surprised to see it personally, but it is interesting how much it came together. Like I thought it would be one of those things where they had to do a big trade for like one more star. That's the way the NBA's kind of conditioned us. But when you have a really high usage, very efficient star like SGA, and then you have another one who's not really a star, but gets usage close to one in Jalen Williams, and they're certainly paying him like a star. That's probably all you need, along with good depth and guys like a bunch of guys who just knock down shots like crazy. Like they really, if if I were making a team, I would build a team like OKC where it's a bunch of guys who are high in true shooting, one or two high usage guys, some big men that can do stuff as well, which sounds very vague and sounds really like a nebulous way to build a team. But it's like really they just got a shitload of shooters and decent athletes and whatever, and that's working out. But you know, they not a lot of usage for sure, besides anybody besides SGA and Jalen Williams. Top exposed players right now, according to Stochastic data, across their 150 set. Number one is Haliburton in the flex, 53% in the flex compared to 38. So they are standing pretty highly on Haliburton here, 14% more in the field. Jalen Brunson pretty much flat with the field, 48%, fields at 47.1. Obviously a good play in the flex. We'll see what they have for him at captain. Karl-Anthony Towns, flat basically at the flex as well. Stochastic seemed to like him at captain. We'll see what that exposure is in a moment. Myles Turner in the flex, 39%, fields at 35. So a little bit above on Turner. A little bit above on OG Anunoby, 37%, fields at 34. Josh Hart, basically flat. A little bit of a stand on Mitchell Robinson, but really not very standy here. More Haliburton in the flex by a good margin. More Mitchell Robinson in the flex by a good margin. Everybody else here, Brunson, Towns, Turner, Anunoby, Hart, they're just kind of holding hands. Let's see the fades in the flex. The fades in the flex, Bridges, they're playing 15% less in the flex, only 15% exposure overall in the top 150. Siakam, 9% less in the flex. Nesmith, 7% less. I do like him a good amount. Thomas Bryant, despite being such a high ROI guy, they're playing him 6% less in the field. Weird. Toppin, 5% less. Nembhard, 5% less, rounded up as well. Mathurin, 3% less in the field. Your highest exposed captains, they want Brunson at 21%, Fields at 18, so not really a big stand there. Basically, they flipped Brunson and Towns' ownership, it looks like. So slightly less Towns, but still 19% in the Fields at 20, so you're basically holding hands there. Anunoby, pretty decent stand, almost 2x the field, 12% at captain, compared to the field 7. Haliburton, 11% at captain, Fields at 9, so I'm a little bit heavier in Haliburton at captain than they are, a little bit lower in the flex as well. Hart, basically with the field, 11%, Fields at 10 and change. Turner, 7%, Fields at 7% and change. Nesmith, 5% and 5%. Anunoby's the biggest stand at captain. Really just not really much in the way of stands here for Stochastic. That's a little bit hard to see. The Bryant thing, like, what did we get for Bryant? So Bryant only played like 1-2 times out of 150. So that's why his ROI is so high. Yeah, Bryant is a captain play. I would throw that shit out the window. I don't think that hits. Unless you're playing a 150 set, like a bunch of 150 sets in a tournament, it would take a while for me to get to a Thomas Bryant captain. I don't think that's a viable play. But there you go. Stochastic likes him more than I would have thought. I'm going to give you guys my splash plays for the day. One last run through plugs, guys. Please do check out our partners here. We got Stochastic, 15% off all the data, all the sim stuff you saw. It'll be updated throughout the day. You can check out updated results for yourself at Stochastic. For 15% off, link down below or use the promo code SPLASH on there. Other sports too, MLB, which I'll be doing a stream for Stochastic later today on. You get in there as well. PGA, MMA, NASCAR, whatever you want. It's all 15% off, and it's in perpetuity as well. It's one of the best promo deals that Stochastic has. So check it out. Link down below. Unabated, 20% off, link down below. Great betting tools on there. You check them out for the market-based stuff. Check out the conditional projections if you want a better edge there for a premium product. Also check out Odds Shopper down below, 50% off there. But check out the betting tools if you are getting in there. If you're just flying blind on betting, you're probably fucking up, to be totally honest. And check out the Discord as well. $5 to join. Talk basketball with me. Check out my data as well. My Squirt Squad channels and VIP channels on there actually get my projections and the data I show you on screen updated throughout the day whenever I update my stuff. So check it out for yourself. $5 to join, and it does support the show directly. All right, splash plays for the day. I mean, number one's Cat. Obviously, I'm going to be above the field on Cat. If I went 100% on SGA yesterday, I imagine I'm going to be about 100% on Towns today. I might shave that a little bit, play some Mitchell Robinson in lineups where I don't have Towns, just see how that goes. But I think Towns, to me, strong play here, projects really well, and Stochastic liking him too certainly doesn't hurt how I feel about it. Besides him, Anunoby, more of a stand than I would have thought. McBride, unfortunately, more of a stand than I would have thought. I'm getting him a good amount. Do think that there's a shot that he could play more minutes, but certainly playing Anunoby, playing Bridges as your first shot there is probably more likely. McBride's cheap in a way that guys like Isaiah Joe were, Keyshawn Wallace were in yesterday's slate, so that's the value of McBride, even though he himself is not a great fantasy player. Besides those guys, Nembhard, Nesmith getting above the field, I think they'd be stands. Haliburton, captain, I would say getting more in the field there would be a stand for me. But I think those are my splash plays. It's a real holding hands with the field kind of slate. I don't mean to do the jerk off motion too, but really this would be an awful way to jerk off. Really kind of balanced slate in a way that's a little bit uncomfortable. The Thomas Bryant thing, actually, let me check to see if I got any Bryant, just out of curiosity. Thomas Bryant. I got 10% exposure for Brian in the flex, none at captain. So yeah, no Thomas Bryant for me. He's not a splash play, but I hope that helps and adds some value, guys. Again, hit that like button, subscribe. Goes a long way for me. Just one dude running multiple channels here. My best ball NFL channel at Splash Play Pod. This one here, where I do my daily gambling, whether it's MLB or NBA. Right now, it's mostly NBA on at Splash Play Bets. Follow both channels if you can. Follow me at Chris Spags. Make sure to gamble responsibly, even though it is always money time here. I'll be back tomorrow with more, guys. Again, we're going to run out the stretch here, as many of these showdown slates as we can get through. Monday to Friday, we will do them. And I'll be on Stochastic at, I believe, 5:30 today for their Live Before Lock show. So check it, maybe 5:45, but somewhere in that range. Check it out. Do an MLB, so I'm going to go prep that right now. And I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck, and go Karl-Anthony Towns again. So, I'll take him off the thumbnail next time, I promise. Bye, guys.